Welcome to Westmark. It's a beautiful day to be together. This is a place where you can belong before you believe. And we know that God is working in many ways. Might be through grief, might be through celebration, but He's working to bring you to where you need to be. And so this church family is a great place to walk together with other people who are on our way to discover and on our way to enjoy what God is doing. This is the first in a series called The 7 Deadly Sins. We're going to be walking through the 7 deadly sins. Now, why would we be talking about sin? Doesn't sound very fun. Why would we spend our time on this? You know, it's important if you want to be healthy, it's important to watch your nutrient intake to make sure you're getting enough of the good stuff. But it's also important that you take a minute every now and again, occasionally, and you do some scans. And you make sure there's nothing bad growing. You make sure that there's nothing that's sinister, that's creeping in. So as we spend time, that's what, in the 7 deadly sins, that's what we're chasing. This is going to be a series of heart scans as we look to see what's growing. Is it healthy or not? There's no Bible verse for the 7 deadly sins. We have Bible verses that says this is the fruit of the Spirit. These are the gifts of the Spirit. These are the Beatitudes. We have these lists in the New Testament. There's no list of these are the 7 deadly sins. You won't find that verse. What happened was as Christianity began and people realized, man, I want to pursue Jesus. And some of them, for some good reasons, some bad reasons, they ended up fleeing out to the desert. They were part of a sinful culture, and they realized this is so difficult, and I can't be a part of this culture, and they retreated into the desert, just like Jesus did when He went and was tempted. And they went to spend time with Jesus, to spend time with God, and some of them became what are known as the desert fathers, the fathers of the early church, the desert fathers. They spent time in study and reflection and deep practices of Christians, of rhythms of grace, and one of the things they realized in this study, in this experience was, man, the temptations you have and the struggles you have, I have those too. And they kind of ended up with this list, and it shifted a little bit over the years, but it primarily stayed the same, of kind of the top 10, if you will, except it's top 7, list of struggles that are just inherent to humanity. So this list, 7 deadly sins. It's actually a better name for it would be the 7 capital vices. Okay, and that's just not as cool sounding, so nobody calls them that. But that's really a better definition. 7 capital sins, because why these ones and not others? Right? Murder's pretty bad, isn't it? Why is not a 7 deadly sin? It's pretty deadly. Well, because murder comes from something. Right? These capitals, or you can think of as the fountainhead of the other sins. Murder actually comes from anger. It comes from this unrighteous wrath. Right? And so that's the capital sin, and it produces things like anger. Well, what about adultery? That's pretty bad. Yeah, but adultery usually comes out of lust. And that's the capital, right? That's the head. And so you work down, you realize these categories, or these capital sins, these capital vices, are where the other ones tend to spring from. And that kind of brings us to the next word, which is vice. Sins, we think of sins, and oftentimes our interaction with them is they're one-off, right? You did something wrong. You told a lie. It was a moment. But vices are deeper than that. Vices have more to do with a character trait. It has to do with habit. It has to do with the way in which you live, how you are shaped. Vices aren't a one-time thing. It's a choice again and again and again that begins to shape you. Similar to virtue, right? Virtue is not just one time. Being generous one time does not make you a generous person. But intentionally choosing to be generous again and again and again will shape you into becoming a generous person, right? So these are things that have a long-standing effect on you. So the virtue would build you up, well, the vices tear you down. Vices are going to have ruts that run through your heart, that you've walked that path again and again and again. It got deeper and deeper. And the chasm in your heart, it gets easier and easier to fall into. It gets harder and harder to overcome. It begins to shape your character. And so these ruts that dig into your heart, they come from us pursuing good things in bad ways. That's probably a good summary for kind of understanding where this whole series is going, is that the pursuit of good things in bad ways. cause these deep ruts in our heart to form. In a book called Glittering Vices, Rebecca DeYoung writes about this, and she says, in a twisted way, our pursuit of vices show us attempting to attain goods like love and friendship, provision and security, recognition and approval, comfort and pleasure, status and worth, all by ourselves and often all for ourselves. And these are good things. We have these good longings in our hearts. Like it's good to want to be close to others. It's actually good to want acceptance. That's not a bad thing. To want to be brought in. It's not bad or wrong to desire to be treasured, to desire to be respected, to accomplish meaningful things or to have purpose in life. Those are good desires. There's a goodness to them. And when you live in them rightly, they produce really good things. They produce a certain type of glory, a certain type of shining out that says, man, this is how God's designed things to be. When we live in this design. But those pursuits harm us. Those good things, pursuing those good things harm us when we seek them in the wrong way. When we seek them at the wrong times. When we seek them in the wrong places. When we seek them too intensely or at the expense of better things. They in and of themselves are not bad. It's what Augustine said in the 4th century. He called it disordered loves. And I think that's a great term. I think that really captures what we're talking about. It's not that the love itself is bad, but when the loves become disordered, now you have a problem. Now what could be good and should produce good things will ultimately produce bad things. Pursuing good things in bad ways. What we end up doing is trying to use something finite to accomplish something infinite. That's really the heart of it. There's this good thing that it's a gift from God, but it's a finite thing. It belongs to this world. And we use it in place of God. And we try to accomplish something infinitely good with something that's finitely good. Good things, wrongly pursued, cause us to sin. And those sins, as they accumulate, begin to warp our character. And then with warped character, what happens is we are never able to grow into who we're supposed to be. And that brings us to the moment in our life where we go, how did I get here? I never thought I would be this person. And we find ourselves doing something and we say, wow, why am I still doing this? How am I still able to, why is this me? I never thought I would be here. I never thought I would get here. Well, you didn't get there overnight. There was a series of things that began to shape you and warp you till you got to this place that you don't want to be. In fact, you may realize you became a person that you don't want to be. And so maybe this morning where you're at, you're recognizing there is fruit in my life that I don't want. There are negative things in my life that I wish I just didn't have. And so you've been picking those fruit and you've been trying to get rid of the poison apple. You're just like, I'm going to pick this, I'm going to get out of here. And there's seasons where you go after it and you trim the tree back and you say, I just don't want this in my life. But the problem with just picking the fruit and trimming the tree is that it just gets bigger. So our time looking at the 7 deadly sins through the perspective of God's word should uncover some things for us. It should uncover in our heart the root of that tree. The root from which all this poisonous fruit comes. If we dig down and we say, this isn't who I want to be, the vice that's underneath, that's shaping me. And we're going to dig that out. Sound fun? Okay. And today's focus, just because of your energetic answer, is going to be pride. 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 And we begin with pride for a number of reasons. But we're going to look in Daniel 4 today, if you'd like to open there. Daniel 4, at a moment where God eviscerates the pride of one man with such surgical precision. And I pray he does the same for us this morning. Daniel 4, we're going to be reading, it's going to be a long passage, so buckle up for that. But let me catch you up to where we're at. There's this guy, he's an incredibly powerful king. His name is Nebuchadnezzar. He's the Babylonian king. And what had happened was the Babylonians were actually raised up by God into power to judge Israel. Meaning Israel, God's people, God said, I want you to walk this way. I want you to follow me. And they wouldn't. And they made an agreement that said, if we follow you, we want this, we agree that these things will happen. If we don't follow you, we agree that these things will happen. And these things mean judgment. And after sending prophets and prophets and prophets, and after rejection and rejection, God says enough. And he raises up the Babylonian Empire to judge Israel, and they overtake them. So this king, Nebuchadnezzar, just overcomes Jerusalem. He takes them. He says, now you're a part of us. He enslaves them, exiles Israel. And one of those guys that he exiles was Daniel. Remember Lion's Den from Sunday school, right? Daniel, that guy. He's brought in, and he actually has a long-standing career as an official in the Babylonian government. He's a counselor. He gives counsel to the king. And so Nebuchadnezzar, just so you kind of wrap your mind around this, he is the most powerful man in the world. And I don't mean to I can't really overstate that. Like in might, in industry, in wealth, this man is not just conquering nations, he's building empires. Absolutely incredible. And I cut it out because my sermon's too long, but we're going to talk about it anyway. He has accomplished so much. Like the 7, the wonders of the ancient world, the hanging gardens, that was him. He had the walls around his kingdom, around his city, that were so thick that at the top of them they could have multiple chariots pass each other. Just immense. And this is in the ancient world. I'm I couldn't build that today. I'm struggling to get a roof on over here, absolutely immense power. This man is untouchable, or so it would seem. And then one night he has a scary dream. And that'll level you, won't it? Scary dreams. And it's vivid. He knows there's something here. He knew it meant something. And so he calls the officials. He talks to Daniel. Daniel, tell me what this means. And this is that passage. So it starts in chapter 4, Daniel 4, verse 9. It says this. Here's my dream. Interpret it for me. These are the visions I saw while lying in bed. I looked, and there before me stood a tree in the middle of the land. Its height was enormous. The tree grew large and strong, and its top touched the sky. It was visible to the ends of the earth. And its leaves were beautiful, its fruit abundant, and on it was food for all. Under it, the wild animals found shelter. The birds lived in its branches. From it, every creature was fed. In the visions I saw while lying in bed, I looked, and there before me was a holy one, a messenger coming down from heaven. And he called in a loud voice, cut down the tree, trim off its branches, strip off its leaves, scatter its fruit. Let the animals flee from under it, and the birds from its branches. Let the stump and its roots, bound with iron and bronze, remain in the ground, in the grass of the field. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven. Let him live with the animals among the plants of the earth. Let his mind be changed from that of a man, and let him be given the mind of an animal, till 7 times pass by for him. And he gets this verse, or he gets this dream, and by the grace of God, Daniel knows what it means. Daniel interprets the dream. He says, I know exactly what this means. Verse 22, he says, your majesty, you are that tree. You have become great and strong. Your greatness has grown until it reaches the sky, and your dominion extends to the distant parts of the earth. And then he goes on to explain, I want you to see what this means for this tree. It says God's going to chop this down. He's saying judgment is coming. God's going to chop you down. He says that he looks at this stump. He says, that's you. That's what's left of you. Just with the mind of an animal, just in the field. Nothing going on. That's who God is going to turn you into. This is going to be God's judgment against you. And so he warns them. Look at verse 27. It says, therefore, your majesty, be pleased to accept my advice. Renounce your sins by doing what is right, and your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed. It may be that then your prosperity will continue. All this happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. 12 months later, as the king was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon, he said, is not this the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty? Even as the words were on his lips, a voice came from heaven. This is what is decreed for you, King Nebuchadnezzar. Your royal authority has been taken from you. You'll be driven away from people, and you'll live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like the ox. 7 times will pass by for you until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth and gives them to anyone he wishes. Most commentators agree that 7 times is 7 years. Immediately, what had been said about Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled. He was driven away from people and ate grass like the ox. His body was drenched with the dew of heaven until his hair grew like the feathers of an eagle, and his nails were like the claws of a bird. And at the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven, and my sanity was restored. And then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. And this next part is what he says, this prayer, this praise toward God. It says, his dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, what have you done? And at the same time that my sanity was restored, my honor and splendor were returned to me for the glory of my kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored to my throne and became even greater than before. And now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right, and all his ways are just. And those who walk in pride, he's able to humble. Man, what an incredible story. And it's so powerful coming from Nebuchadnezzar himself. And I want you to notice how precise, like I said, this sort of scalpel of God's judgment is. That the most powerful man in the world, the untouchable man, before the words left his mouth, he was brought from the height of the world to the dirt. Pride. Pride. I want us to wrap our minds around what that means, pride. In a really simple way, pride is the disordered love of recognition. We talk about this disordered loves, and that's kind of where all the root of things will come from as we look at vices. And specifically, pride is going to be the disordered love of recognition. Functionally, it looks like an excessive, right? That's an important word, an excessive or disordered desire to be well known, to be well liked, to be approved or applauded. An interesting thing, pride, because it's simply, you could think about it as the verb form of it is thinking of yourself too much. Not necessarily thinking too much of yourself. That is pride, but overall, the bigger definition is that you think of yourself too much. You are just a little too much in the center of the universe. It's just about you too much. You as a focal point, good or bad, is what pride does. That's the function of pride. A disordered love of recognition will put recognition on you too high, that you need it, that you have to have it. But also, a disordered love of recognition can put what God recognizes in you too low. And both are pride, both are sin, that you fail to respect what God recognizes as valuable. That's a pride issue. You know how to recognize pride. We see it in people, and some are easier to get than others. But it comes down to this character. It comes down to the heart of the person. That pride would have us view ourselves too large. But it would also have us view ourselves too small. That it would reject what God says about us, either in excess or in deficit. Pride. Prideful people demand patience, but they have little of it to give. Prideful people are quick to anger. Prideful people are slow to listen. Prideful people are quick to speak. See, pride, when it sits there, it strangles gratitude. You can't be thankful and prideful very well at the same time. Pride starves intimacy. because it isolates, and we'll talk about that. But pride also makes us desperate in an interesting twist. You would think that as it isolates and as it makes us better than everybody, it would make us immune from other people's opinions. But actually, what happens is you're desperate for their validation. Pride makes you desperate for your validation, because how exactly do you know that you're so much better than everybody else? How exactly do you know that you're so much worse than everybody else? It takes a comparison, doesn't it? You end up desperate to be validated. Pride, as the first one we start with, because from pride, it's really the original sin, all the others spawn. All the other sins can be traced back to, at first, a sense of pride, where you look at the throne of God and you say, I think I should be up there. That's a start. I think I ought to make the rules. I think I ought to be the one calling the shots. That's why in James 4 and in 1 Peter and in Proverbs 3, it all talks about, it says the same verse. The Bible says it 3 times. That's pretty important. God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble, or grace to the humble. God opposes the proud. Why is that? Because when you come prideful to God, you are positioning yourself as his enemy. The proud are positioning themselves against God, saying, I know better than you. I deserve more than you. What you said wasn't quite true. It forces God to oppose them, to defend against them, by claiming that they deserve what's been given to God. That's what Nebuchadnezzar did, right? Look what all that I've built. All for me. All for my glory. And it was right there. Because later on in the passage, if you notice, when it says that he was restored in the kingdom, it says, restored to me my glory. It's interesting, right? Because the truth is there is good things. Like there's goodness and there's glory that come from the good things in life. Nebuchadnezzar did amazing things. You have done incredible things. You're going to go on to do amazing things. By the grace of God, we're going to get to see beauty and wonder, and we're going to see life change. Incredible things happen. You're going to impact the world, and there's a sense of glory and goodness that comes from that. But what do you do with the glory? Where does it go? That's the problem. It's not that what you do doesn't matter at all. No, the exact opposite. It matters a lot. That's why God's asking you to do it, but it's not for you. It's not to lift you up. Pursuing good things the wrong way. Pursuing the good things and the glory that comes from those good things is not bad in and of itself. But it's wrong when we steal that recognition and we steal that. We say, this is what I'm using to get my approval. This is what I'm going to use to get my worth. We slip into pride and we steal that recognition and we steal that approval by stealing the spotlight that's meant for him. Stealing what should be shined on God. I'll give you an example of this, okay? There's the renowned guitarist, Swedish guitarist, young William Malmsteen. You guys catch his last album? It was great. Yngwie Malmsteen. He was on tour in Mexico. I don't know if you got tickets, but he was going through and he's playing this show, and he's just finishing up this like blistering guitar solo, and he stops the show to berate the lighting guy. Just in the middle of the show, he just stops. He's like, "What are you doing?" And he starts yelling at this guy. And apparently he was messing around, and he was messing with the lights. He was distracting from everything that going on. So like mid-shred sesh, the lighting guy just gets like put on blast in front of everybody. Like, who do you think you are? What are you doing? And I want to imagine that the story goes further. It doesn't, but I just want you to imagine. I want you to imagine that he's getting yelled at, and what the lighting guy then takes all the lights and he just puts them on himself. And he says, "Aren't I the greatest lighting guy ever? Aren't I just incredible at what I'm doing?" Everyone would be like, "No, you're doing the exact opposite of what you're supposed to be doing." The whole point of the lighting guy, the most glorious thing the lighting guy can do, the most incredible thing that he can do, if he was the best lighting guy in the entire universe for all time, what he would do is shine the light where it's supposed to be. It should be that in this expression of how great he is, it actually illuminates the stage better. And for the lighting guy to climb down and get on the stage and say, everybody look at me, how great am I, would be to undermine everything. It would be to ruin the entire thing. It would be ruin his job, it would ruin his position, ruin his responsibilities. It would steal from it. And that's really what pride is. It's the stealing of the spotlight. It's the stealing it for ourselves. The glory that comes from what we do is not bad. It's supposed to do that. The goodness that flows from how we live, it ought to do that. But it's meant to shine the light more brightly on Jesus, to shine it onto the stage. That's why Jesus tells us that we have this light, that it should shine, that all men should see it, that it should glorify our Father. Well, how does it do that? Not by shining it on ourselves. And in equal measure, not shining it into the ground, covering it up, pretending it doesn't exist. Both would be to take what's meant to shine God and illuminate what he's doing and smother it on something less worthy. It's bright and it's beautiful and it's glorious and it's meant to be. And that's how God's gifted you. That's what God has called you into. But the pride traps us. It steals that purpose from us and it traps us into this performance. Pride, what it does is it pushes us onto that stage. And we shouldn't be there. We shouldn't be there to begin with. And so this is what happens. In your pride, here's some like little litmus tests, all right? You look at the way you live your life. And you realize, man, pride will force me to start curating kind of what everybody sees. Pride will cause me to embellish what's going on and what isn't. Pride will cause me to exhaust myself to prove something to somebody. Why? Because I'm performing. I need them to see me. I'm the lighting guy. I'm pretty important. I'm on the stage. But yet, what Jesus warns us about is he says, be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others, to be seen by them. If you do, you'll have no reward from your Father in heaven. No reward. And this is the thing. The approval of people or the approval of the voices in your head, it only lasts as long as your performance does. Which means you're trapped. You can't stop. You know how you get free? You got to get off the stage. You got to get off of the stage. There is a place that God designed us to be. And as long as we're transgressing that, as long as we're trying to climb onto some platform that isn't built for us, we will always suffer for it. It just won't work. It just will not work. It's a disordered love of that recognition. It's great that you want to shine. It's great that you want to produce the best things. It's great that you have these drives for excellence or hard work, for love or compassion. Like these are exactly what you should have, but not when the glory lands on you. That's not what it's meant for. You'll miss what God is doing. It's a disordered love of that recognition. We take the recognition, we lift it too high, and it drives us because we're so desirous of it. Or we take that recognition and we throw it all the way down, and we say, no, I'm going to despise it. I don't want anyone to see it. I don't want it to do what God designed it to do. And both are forms of pride. It would be just as much pride for that lighting guy to put the lights on him as it would be for him to turn them off when everybody's depending on it. Pride drives some of us into the limelight, and it drives others of us into the darkness. Either way, we're not living up to what God designed for us. You realize that when God created mankind, he said, this is very good. And ever since then, we've been longing for that declaration to be spoken over us again. That you are very good. He has a place for us. And you won't understand what God's made you to do if you keep trying to stand somewhere else. Let me give you a warning flag, okay? This is just a warning flag that pops up. If you're saying, I recognize there's some pride in my life, how do I track this down? One of the early warning signs for a prideful heart is feeling isolated. Pride isolates us. And now, it's not the only thing that isolates us, but pride always will isolate us. It always will. That's where it's always going. C.S. Lewis once wrote about this. He said, other vices may sometimes bring people together. You may find good fellowship with jokes and friendliness among drunken people or unchaste people or impure people. But pride always means enmity. It is enmity. And not only enmity between man and man, but enmity to God. There's a reality of this, that friendship is one of the first casualties of pride in your life. Because pride has to be the star. Pride can't exist with other prideful people. That doesn't make sense. Pride has to be the only one. It forces loneliness. And think about it functionally. Like, you are so worried about being better than everyone that it suffocates your ability to love them well. And you pull away. Or on the other end, you're so worried about being so much worse than everyone that it suffocates your ability to love well. And so you pull away. You're not humble enough to sit through the uncomfortable part that says, yeah, you are weak, but you're also valuable. Yeah, you do have problems, but that's why you're here. The profound, aching sense of loneliness grows because whatever applause or approval that you do manage to get along the way, you know that it wasn't truly for you. It was for the mask you were wearing. And so it never does satisfy because you know you're not that person. Maybe this stings. I don't know if you're having fun. I'm not. This is a hard one to write. Maybe you're actually walking through some of this Nebuchadnezzar judgment right now. That hardship would fall on you because God's waiting for you to start listening. I want to say this with grace. I want to say this with the authority of the Word of God from a heart of love. Humble yourself, or He will humble you. That's how it goes. That it won't be easier. It won't be nicer. The judgment continues until the humility clicks. That you realize you have this point where you believe that you go, oh my goodness, God is worthy of the glory. I have a place and it's not at the top. He will continue to humble you until you realize that. You need to get to the point where you respect His design of things, where you respect His choices of where He's put you, where you respect the value He puts on things, not more and not less. The value that He has placed. And when you're wrestling with that, you got to get to the point where you say, I confess that I have not done this well. You need a Nebuchadnezzar moment where your view of God is correct. I want you to listen to what he said in his confession to God. He said, this is Nebuchadnezzar talking about God. He says, His dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures for generation to generation. It's His power, His control, His plan. It's not mine. I'm a part of this. He's welcoming into this, but it's His, and He gets to decide. And I'm not going to oppose what He decides. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as He pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. It belongs to Him. That means the judgment He makes, I submit to. The truth that He teaches, I submit to. The circumstances He puts me in, I submit to. The plan that He makes, I submit to. I'm not in charge. I don't come against Him. I don't oppose Him. It's His. That's my place. It's humility. To be humbled. It says no one can hold back his hand or say to Him, what have you done? Nobody gets to say, God, how dare you? Do you know who I am? I'm the lighting guy. I'm in charge of the lights around here. He says, what's the point of the lighting guy? So that people can see me. So that people can see who's on stage. The point of the lighting guy is somebody else. You know, you don't get to go to Him and say, you're not allowed to. God, I would do this, but only if you do this first. We don't bargain with Him. There's a submission that God is the creator and I'm the created. And in your pride, that feels so offensive. It feels like such a weight. It feels such a heaviness. But in humility, you realize it's such a joy. It's such a freedom to be welcomed, to be brought in. Nebuchadnezzar realizes the character of God. He says, this is who God really is. And we get to have an even clearer picture of who God is. We get to see Jesus. No, so it's not just the power, it's not just the might, it's also the mercy, it's also the compassion. And we see this character of God perfectly represented in Jesus. And when you come to know Jesus, like we are so worried about how big we are, and Jesus would come humbly. We're so worried about getting more and having more, and Jesus would come with nothing and give his life. The humility of Jesus just shines this light in the darkest parts of our heart. We go, that's just not who I am naturally. I'm so prideful. And you go, you spend time with Jesus, you read, you pray, you spend time with him, you go, man, he's changing me. His humility, his love, his kindness to reach into my life changes me. He's worth the glory. Yeah, I don't want to steal it anymore. I want to give it to him. He's worth trusting. I don't want to fight him on this. I want to follow him. He's worth centering my life on. He's worth drawing near to. And there's this moment that he would come, where this clicks, he would come humbly. And he would take the consequence for our pride. He would victoriously come back to life, and then he would invite us to join him. Don't waste your life trying to steal glory from that. Don't waste your life doing that. You'll miss the whole role that you have, which is to experience the joy of seeing it, of experiencing it, of putting all the glory back on him, of shining all the light on him, and seeing all that goodness come back to you in a relationship with God. And so maybe you've discovered in our time here this morning, maybe you've discovered a little bit of pride in this heart scan. And you say, I want to deal with this. I want you to walk away with this, okay? I want you to walk away with a couple things you can do. Here are 2 Christian rhythms of grace. These are meaningful practices. They don't force God to do something in us. We're not indebting God to us. What happens is we're positioning ourselves humbly to receive grace in these practices. And this is the 2 rhythms I want you to kind of hold to. I want you to try these. Are silence and solitude. The noise and the bolstering of pride, the way it controls how we think about ourselves and others, one of the ways you start to break that down is in silence and solitude. And just consider that for a moment. Silence in your crazy, loud, busy life. Just to sit. To have a silence frees you from the constant stream of these voices that either approve of you or disapprove of you. And in the silence, something happens. Number one, those start to flush out. And you start to realize the things that you're actually listening to. There might be some voices in there that are controlling you, that are influencing you, that are programming you, and you're not even recognizing that they're there. You're just buying into them. And you get a chance to quiet those, including your own voice, to quiet those and say, how true is this? Am I really that stupid? Am I really that worthless? Did I really accomplish all this because I'm that great? Did I really do this because I'm so incredible? These voices, these tracks that you play, the silence begins to challenge them. The second, solitude, simply being alone with God. Solitude removes the audience that you're either trying to impress or hide from. Whether you're trying to impress them with what you're doing or who you are or how you dress or whatever it is, or you're trying to hide from them because you don't want them to see this or that or the other, it removes the audience, and it's a practice of living for an audience of one. And you want to be able to do that all the time. You start small, start in silence and solitude where you say, it's just me. It's just God. There is no one else. I don't need to pretend. And you might be surprised at some of the things you're pretending and you're not even realizing. Here's the challenge. Try this. 15 minutes. Carve that out. 15 minutes a week of just silence and solitude. It's you, it's God. Maybe it's a pen and paper, and you sit. And it's going to take a while. So you're going to have a lot to flush out. But here's what's going to happen. Fair warning on the back end of that is there's a withdrawal. And maybe you start stretching the time past 15 minutes. You probably will need to. But you get to this withdrawal point. Because everything that you've been covering up with the noise, everything you've been running from with the audience, all of that has a chance to catch up to you. And you get to deal with it. That's good. But it's not fun. It's humility. God will humble you. And that's a gift. Did you notice how Nebuchadnezzar ended what he said? His whole ending here. Those who walk in pride, he's able to humble. And the prideful part of our hearts is going to hear that as a threat. He can get you. He's coming. Just you wait. But the humble part of our heart, the part that realizes how Jesus is rescuing us from our own pride, realize that this is an invitation. This is good news. That deep rut of pride that you've fallen into again and again, that's destroyed relationships, that's harmed yourself. He's able. He's able to pull you out of that. He's able to reshape your heart, make you humble. And you can grow into who you're supposed to be. It's an invitation for healing and freedom and joy. Not opposing God. He doesn't oppose you anymore. Instead, he gives you the grace you need. Praise God for that.